What if the moment you feared the most is not the moment you break, but the moment you finally become stable? Let me ask you something gently, honestly. If your twin flame disappeared from your life tomorrow, no message, no sign, no explanation, would you collapse? Or would you simply continue breathing? For a long time, many people on the twin flame journey believe that pain is proof of depth, that longing is evidence of love, that suffering means the connection is real. So when the pain fades, when the desperation softens, when the constant emotional storm goes quiet, can feel confusing, even frightening, because no one warned you that healing might feel like emptiness before it feels like peace. This chapter is about that moment, the moment where nothing dramatic happens, yet everything has already changed. The question we avoid asking. Most people are comfortable asking, why did they leave? When will they come back? What lesson is this teaching me? But there is a deeper question we avoid. Who am I without this connection? Because if the twin flame journey has done anything, it has blurred the line between love and identity. At some point, the connection stops being something you experience and starts being something you are. You don't just love them. You organize your emotional world around them. Your moods respond to their energy. Your hope depends on signs. Your sense of worth rises and falls with their presence. And then, they leave. Or they pull away. Or the connection dissolves into silence. And you expect devastation. But instead something strange happens. You wake up one day and you are still here. Not euphoric. Not heartbroken. Just here. The quiet after the storm. This is the part no one romanticizes. The quiet. There are no intense dreams. No episodes. No checking timelines, tarot readings, or signs. There is no rush of longing. But also no sharp pain. Just a strange emotional neutrality. And this is where fear often enters. Because many people mistake inner stability for emotional numbness. They think, have I lost the connection? Did I give up too soon? Am I blocking love? Does this mean it wasn't real? But what if the absence of chaos is not a loss of love, but the return of balance? What if peace is not emptiness, but integration? Why stability feels so unfamiliar? Here's the truth most twin flame narratives don't tell you. Your nervous system learned to associate intensity with meaning. High emotion became the baseline. Up and down became normal. Waiting became a habit. So when your body finally exits survival mode, when it stops scanning for abandonment, when it no longer needs reassurance, your mind panics. Because calm feels unfamiliar. Because stability does not create adrenaline. And the ego whispers, if it doesn't hurt, it must not matter. But that whisper is not intuition. It is conditioning. The shift no one sees. Inner stability does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly. You notice it when you stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop needing closure. You stop asking the universe to explain itself. You still remember them, but the memory no longer controls your breath. You still care, but you are no longer consumed. You realize something subtle but powerful. Your life is no longer on pause. You eat. You sleep. You work. You laugh at things that have nothing to do with them. And for the first time, your sense of self does not depend on whether someone else chooses you. That is not detachment. That is inner union beginning to form. The illusion of losing the connection. Many people believe that if they stop longing, the connection will disappear. But real connections do not survive through anxiety. They survive through alignment. What fades is not the bond, but the dependency. What dissolves is not love, but the belief that love must hurt to be meaningful. Inner stability does not mean you stop feeling. It means your emotions no longer own you. You are no longer chasing love from a wound. You are no longer confusing intensity with intimacy. A different kind of strength. There is a quiet strength that emerges when you no longer fear loss. You stop gripping people tightly. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop shrinking yourself to stay connected. You realize, if they return, you will meet them whole. If they don't, you will still be complete. And this is where many people misunderstand the twin flame journey. They think the goal is reunion, but the deeper purpose has always been sovereignty. to love without disappearing, to connect without abandoning yourself, to experience depth without drowning in it, the moment you're afraid to admit. Here is a moment many people experience but rarely say out loud. You realize that if they came back now, they would not be your center anymore. And that realization can bring guilt, because you once believed love meant losing yourself. But mature love does not ask you to dissolve. It asks you to stand. This is not the end. If you are here, in this quiet phase, where you are no longer desperate, but not yet inspired, please understand this. You have not failed the journey. You have completed a major initiation. This chapter is not about letting go of them. It is about reclaiming yourself. And in the chapters that follow, we will explore what this stability truly means, why it is the foundation of inner union, and how it transforms the way love can enter your life, whether with them or beyond them. For now, just know this: they are gone, and you are still here. That is not weakness. That is the beginning of freedom. There comes a point on the twin flame journey that feels unsettling, not because something is wrong, but because something stopped hurting. You don't wake up thinking about them first thing in the morning anymore. You don't feel that familiar tightness in your chest when you imagine their absence. You don't ask the universe for signs with the same urgency. And instead of relief, what you feel is confusion. Because for so long the connection was fueled by need. And now, the need is gone. The subtle fear behind healing. Many people believe they want healing, but what they really want is certainty. They want the pain to stop without losing the story. They want peace without releasing the attachment. They want stability without surrendering control. So when healing actually arrives, it can feel like betrayal. You may ask yourself, why don't I miss them the same way? Why am I not aching anymore? Why does it feel like I could live my life even without them? And beneath those questions lies a deeper fear. If I don't need them anymore, does that mean the connection is gone? But what if the connection was never meant to be sustained by need? What if need was simply the wound speaking? The difference between love and dependency. Dependency disguises itself as devotion. Tells you, I can't live without you. You complete me. Without you, I am empty. Love, on the other hand, whispers something very different. I choose you, but I am whole without you. You add to my life, you don't define it. I can stand alone and still open my heart. On the twin flame path, dependency often appears first. Not because the love isn't real, but because unhealed parts of you are activated. Old abandonment wounds, old attachment patterns, old fears of being unseen or unloved. The connection brings them to the surface. And for a while it feels like love. But eventually, healing begins to separate the two. When the nervous system finally relaxes, one of the clearest signs you are no longer dependent is not emotional detachment, but nervous system regulation. Your body no longer lives in anticipation. You are no longer hyper-aware of their energy, their moods, their distance. You stop scanning for danger. You stop bracing for loss. And this calm can feel unfamiliar because chaos once felt like connection. But calm is not indifference. Calm is safety. And safety is where true love can exist. Why not needing them feels like loss at first. Here's a paradox many people struggle with. When you no longer need someone, it can feel like you're losing them. Because need created intensity, and intensity created meaning. Without it, things feel quieter. But quieter does not mean empty. It means the relationship has moved from survival to sovereignty. You are no longer loving from fear. You are no longer loving from lack. You are loving from presence or not at all. And either way, you are okay. The end of emotional bargaining. Another sign dependency has dissolved. You stop bargaining with the universe. You no longer say, if I heal enough, they'll come back. If I let go, maybe they'll chase. If I become spiritual enough, the reunion will happen. Because something inside you understands. Love is not a transaction. You cannot earn someone's presence by sacrificing your peace. You cannot manipulate alignment through suffering. And when this realization lands, a profound emotional maturity follows. You stop chasing outcomes. You start honoring truth. When identity returns to the center, dependency often pulls your identity outward. You define yourself as the one waiting, the one holding space, the one enduring the pain. Healing brings identity back home. You remember what you like, what you value, what brings you joy. Your inner world no longer revolves around someone else's decisions. And this is not selfishness. This is self-restoration. A hard truth few want to hear. Here is something rarely said honestly in twin flame spaces. If a connection requires you to abandon yourself, it is not union. It is fragmentation. True union, inner or outer, can only occur between two whole beings. And wholeness begins the moment you stop needing someone else to validate your existence. This does not invalidate what you felt, completes it. The freedom that comes with not needing. When you no longer need them, you stop chasing reassurance. You stop explaining yourself. You stop shrinking to stay connected. You allow people to show you who they are. And you believe them. You no longer cling to potential. You honor reality. And this is where your power quietly returns. This is where inner union deepens. Inner union does not announce itself. Settles in slowly. Feels like emotional neutrality without numbness. Openness without anxiety. Love without desperation. You are no longer split between who you are and who you think you must be to be loved. Those parts integrate. And for the first time, you are not seeking completion through another person. You are sharing wholeness starting with yourself. An invitation to reflect. Let me ask you something honestly. If they never returned, would your life still have meaning? If the answer is yes, even quietly, even imperfectly, then something important has shifted. You are no longer living for reunion. You are living from truth. Not needing someone does not mean you never loved them. It means love has evolved beyond fear. It means the bond is no longer maintained by wounds. It means you have stepped into emotional adulthood. And in the next chapter, we will explore what happens when fear of loss dissolves completely, and why that moment marks a profound threshold on the path toward true inner union. For now, let this land gently. You are not losing love. You are reclaiming yourself. And that is never a mistake. There is a moment on this journey that does not feel dramatic. No tears. No spiritual epiphany. No grand realization announced by the universe. It arrives quietly. And yet it changes everything. It is the moment when you realize you are no longer afraid of losing them. Not because you stopped caring. Not because you became cold. But because something deeper inside you has stabilized. And when fear dissolves, power naturally returns. Understanding the root of the fear. Let's be honest about something that rarely gets addressed directly. The fear of losing your twin flame was never just about losing them. It was about losing your sense of meaning, your identity within the story, your emotional anchor, the belief that someone else held the key to your wholeness. At its core, the fear was existential. If they go, who am I? If this ends, what was it all for? If the connection dissolves, what do I have left? Fear of loss is not weakness. It is the nervous system clinging to familiarity. And for a long time, the connection felt like oxygen. So of course the idea of losing it felt like suffocation. Why fear once felt like love? Many people confuse fear with depth. The anxiety, the obsession, the emotional highs and lows. They believe, if it hurts this much, it must be important. But fear does not indicate significance. It indicates attachment to outcome. Fear arises when your sense of safety lives outside of you. When your peace depends on their presence, their validation, their choices. Love becomes conditional. And conditional love always contains fear. The turning point no one talks about. The fear doesn't disappear all at once. It weakens gradually. One day, you notice you're no longer imagining worst-case scenarios. Another day, you stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. Another day, the thought of them choosing differently doesn't shatter you. And eventually, a subtle realization emerges. If they leave, I will survive. Not as a coping mechanism, but as a truth. And that truth is liberating. When fear leaves, control leaves with it. Fear and control are deeply linked. When you fear loss, you try to manage outcomes, reading into silence, interpreting mixed signals, holding space longer than is healthy, delaying your own life just in case. But when fear dissolves, control becomes unnecessary. You stop forcing alignment. You stop chasing clarity. You allow things to unfold, even if the unfolding includes endings. And this is where true strength appears. Power is not intensity, it is stability. Real power is quiet. It does not beg. It does not cling. It does not chase. It says, I am open, but I am not dependent. I care, but I am not attached to an outcome. I can love without losing myself. This kind of power feels unfamiliar at first, because it does not come with emotional fireworks. It comes with grounded presence. The shift from reaction to choice. When fear ruled, you reacted. You reacted to their distance, their mood, their silence. Your emotional state changed based on theirs. But when fear dissolves, something remarkable happens. You regain choice. You choose whether to engage, whether to wait, whether to step back, whether to move forward. Not from strategy, from self-respect. You stop abandoning yourself to preserve connection. And this is where dignity quietly returns. The end of emotional collapse. Fear of loss often leads to emotional collapse. A single message or lack of one could destabilize you. A shift in energy could ruin your day. But now, even if something ends, you do not fall apart. You feel sadness without drowning, disappointment without self-erasure, grief without losing your center. You remain intact. And that is emotional maturity. A truth few are ready to accept. Here is something that may challenge old beliefs. If someone can leave your life and destroy you, you were never in union. You were in attachment. True union does not collapse the self, strengthens it. An inner union must always come first. Why fear dissolving changes everything. When you are no longer afraid to lose someone, you stop tolerating inconsistency. You stop overgiving. You stop waiting in limbo. You begin to require alignment, not potential. You no longer build your life around maybes. You build it around truth. And this changes the quality of every relationship that follows. What remains when fear is gone? When fear leaves, what remains is clarity. You see people as they are, not as you hope they will become. You understand that love does not require self-sacrifice. You recognize that peace is not something to earn, it is something to protect. And you stop confusing endurance with devotion. The calm that replaces fear. What replaces fear is not indifference. It is calm. A calm that says, I am safe with myself. I can be alone without feeling abandoned. I can love without losing control. This calm is not passive. It is rooted. And from this place, every choice you make is cleaner. Power is the ability to walk away without hatred. One of the clearest signs your power has returned is your ability to walk away without resentment. You don't need closure through confrontation. You don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You simply choose yourself. And that choice does not come from bitterness. Comes from wholeness. This is the threshold. Few are here. No longer afraid of loss. No longer controlled by hope or fear. You are standing at a threshold. On one side is the old version of you, the one who loved from wounds. On the other side is a new way of relating. Rooted, conscious, sovereign. This is not the end of the journey. It is the point where the journey becomes yours. When the fear of losing them disappears, you do not lose love. You lose illusion. You lose dependency. You lose the belief that someone else determines your worth. And what replaces it is something far more powerful. Self-trust. In the next chapter, we will explore what happens when you stop waiting entirely, and how inner union becomes a lived reality, not a concept. For now, remember this. The moment fear leaves, your life begins to move again. And this time, you are walking it on your own terms. Waiting is rarely recognized as a state of being. Most people think waiting is something you do. But on this journey, waiting becomes something you are. You wake up waiting. You go to sleep waiting. Your plans pause themselves quietly, politely, as if life itself should wait for the connection to resolve. And for a long time, waiting feels justified. Because you tell yourself, this is spiritual. This is patience. This is trust. But there comes a moment when waiting no longer feels sacred, feels heavy, and that moment is not failure. It is awareness, the invisible cost of waiting. Waiting has a cost that is rarely acknowledged, not because it is dramatic, but because it is subtle. While you wait, you postpone joy. You delay decisions. You soften your desires. You keep life slightly out of reach. Not because you don't want it, but because a part of you believes that moving forward might mean leaving the connection behind. And that feels disloyal. So you hover. Not fully here. Not fully gone. Just suspended. Why waiting once felt necessary. Waiting once felt meaningful because it gave structure to uncertainty. Created a sense of purpose. I'm holding space. I'm doing inner work. I'm not abandoning the connection. But beneath that purpose was fear. Fear that if you moved on, the story would end. Fear that if you chose yourself, you would lose them forever. Fear that forward motion meant betrayal. So you stayed still. The moment waiting breaks. Waiting doesn't end with a decision. It ends with a realization. One day you notice that life is knocking, and you're not answering. Opportunities arise, but you hesitate. People enter your world, but you stay distant. Joy invites you in, but you keep one foot out the door. And a quiet question emerges. How long am I going to live like this? Not angrily. Not desperately. Just honestly. The difference between trust and pausing your life. True trust does not require self-suspension. It does not ask you to stop living. Trust says, whatever is aligned will meet me in motion. Waiting says, I must stay still so I don't miss something. And that difference changes everything. Because life does not meet stagnation. It meets movement. When you realize waiting is a habit, waiting becomes familiar. Feels safe. Because as long as you wait, you don't have to face disappointment, new beginnings, uncertainty without a story. Waiting protects you from risk, but it also protects you from aliveness. And when you see that clearly, waiting loses its grip. The first step forward feels uncomfortable. When you stop waiting, the first movement feels wrong. Not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. You feel guilt. You feel doubt. You feel like you're doing something irreversible. You may think, what if this is the moment they come back? What if I move on too soon? What if I misread the signs? But those thoughts are echoes of an old identity. The identity that believed life must pause for love. Life does not punish you for choosing yourself. One of the biggest fears on this path is punishment. That if you move forward, something bad will happen. That if you let go of waiting, the universe will close a door forever. But life does not punish clarity. It responds to it. The moment you step forward, not to replace them but to reclaim yourself. Energy shifts. Not magically. Not instantly. But honestly. When momentum returns. Momentum doesn't feel euphoric. Feels natural. You start making decisions again. You stop explaining your choices. You invest energy without checking if it's allowed. You don't feel rushed. You feel grounded. And slowly life begins to respond. Not because you forced it, but because you are finally participating. The end of just-in-case living. Waiting creates a just-in-case life. Just in case they reach out. Just in case something changes. Just in case the story isn't over. But just in case living keeps you half alive. When waiting ends, so does that compromise. You stop reserving parts of yourself. You stop dimming future possibilities to preserve the past. You don't erase the connection. You release the pause button. You don't need closure to move forward. One of the deepest illusions of waiting is the belief that closure must come before movement. But closure is not a prerequisite for living. It is often the result of living. You gain clarity not by staying still, but by moving forward without resentment. And that is a powerful form of closure. Moving forward is not forgetting. This is important. Moving forward does not mean forgetting them. It does not mean denying what you felt. It does not mean replacing love. It means you are no longer sacrificing your present to preserve a possibility. You honor what was, without imprisoning yourself in it. When life starts to flow again, flow does not announce itself. feels like ease in decisions, steadiness in emotions, openness without anxiety. You stop asking, "Is this aligned?" and start noticing, "This feels right." Flow is not perfection. It is participation, the quiet confidence that emerges as life begins to move again. Something inside you settles. You no longer need reassurance that you're on the right path. You trust your internal signal. You stop waiting for permission. And with that confidence comes a new way of relating. You no longer enter relationships from pause. You enter them from presence. The most important realization. Here is the realization that ends waiting completely. If something is meant to meet you, it will meet you in motion. If something requires you to freeze your life, it is not alignment, it is fear. And when this truth lands, waiting no longer feels noble. It feels unnecessary. Stopping waiting does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop postponing your life. It means you trust that love does not require stagnation. It means you choose movement not to escape the past, but to honor your future. And in the next chapter, we will explore what happens when inner union stabilizes fully, when you no longer seek love to fill a space, but to share a fullness already present. For now, let this settle. Life does not ask you to wait. It asks you to live. And when you finally do, everything begins to move again. Inner union does not arrive like a revelation. There is no moment where you suddenly feel complete. Instead, one day you realize something quieter. You are no longer searching. Not because you gave up. Not because you became detached. But because the sense of lack that once drove you has dissolved. And in its place, something steady remains. What inner union is not. Before we talk about what inner union is, we need to be clear about what it is not. Inner union is not emotional numbness. It is not spiritual bypassing. It is not convincing yourself that you don't need connection. And it is not superiority. Inner union does not say, "I am above love." It says, "I am no longer incomplete without it." From fragmentation to integration. Earlier in the journey, you lived fragmented. Part of you was present in your life. Another part lived in anticipation. Another part stayed in memory. Your energy was divided. Inner union begins the moment those parts stop pulling in different directions. The part of you that feared abandonment. The part of you that longed deeply. The part of you that tried to stay strong. They stop competing. They begin to cooperate. You no longer reject your vulnerability. You no longer shame your desire. You no longer cling to your strength. All of it belongs. The shift from seeking to being. For a long time, love was something you sought. You looked for it in connection, intensity, recognition, signs, stories. Inner union changes the direction of movement. Love stops being something you chase. It becomes something you inhabit. You don't ask, "Do they see me?" You ask, "Am I present with myself?" And that changes the entire field of relating. Wholeness feels ordinary. One of the most surprising things about inner union is how ordinary it feels. There is no constant bliss. There is no dramatic happiness. There is simply steadiness, self-trust, emotional availability without urgency. You wake up and meet the day as yourself, not as someone waiting, not as someone hoping, not as someone preparing for reunion. Just you. You no longer feel split between love and self. Before inner union, love felt like a choice between connection or self-respect, intimacy or peace, hope or reality. Inner union dissolves this conflict. You realize, love does not require self-abandonment. Connection does not demand self-erasure. You no longer negotiate your worth to stay close. You no longer silence your truth to preserve harmony. You remain intact in relationship. Emotional stability becomes the baseline. Inner union establishes a new baseline. Your emotional state is no longer easily hijacked. You still feel attraction, disappointment, affection, grief. But these emotions pass through you, not over you. You are no longer destabilized by the presence or absence of another. Your nervous system knows where home is, and home is inside you. Love becomes a choice, not a compulsion. One of the clearest markers of inner union is the absence of compulsion. You do not reach out to soothe anxiety. You do not withdraw to protect your ego. You do not overgive to secure attachment. You choose connection from clarity. And if clarity isn't present, you choose space without drama. This is not avoidance. This is discernment. You stop romanticizing suffering. Inner union dismantles one of the deepest illusions of the journey. That pain equals depth. That longing equals truth. That endurance equals devotion. You begin to understand. Love does not require suffering to be real. Growth does not require self-sacrifice. Spirituality does not require emotional collapse. And with that understanding, you stop glorifying instability. The twin flame concept loses its grip. Something subtle but important happens here. The twin flame concept no longer defines you. It may still resonate. It may still hold meaning. But it no longer owns your identity. You stop asking, is this my twin flame? Is this my destiny? Is this union? You start asking, is this aligned? Is this mutual? Is this healthy? And that shift is profound. You are no longer afraid of either outcome. Inner union neutralizes outcome anxiety. Reunion no longer feels like salvation. Separation no longer feels like loss. Both are simply experiences. You understand that. If someone meets you in this state, they meet the real you. And if they don't, nothing essential is taken from you. This is not indifference. It is grounded self-trust. Life is no longer on hold. When wholeness becomes your default state, life reclaims its rhythm. You make plans without hesitation. You invest energy without reservation. You explore without guilt. You don't ask if it's allowed. You know it is. Because you are no longer living from lack. A new way of loving emerges. From inner union, love looks different. It is slower. It is clearer. It is mutual. You don't confuse chemistry with compatibility. You don't confuse intensity with intimacy. You allow people to meet you where you are, not where you once were. And you no longer chase those who cannot. You become available without being exposed. This is a subtle but crucial distinction. Inner union does not close the heart. It opens it with boundaries. You are emotionally available, but not unprotected. You share without oversharing. You care without collapsing. You remain yourself in connection. Wholeness does not end the journey. Inner union is not a finish line. It is a foundation. From this place, growth continues, but without desperation. Love continues, but without fear. Relationships form, but without self-betrayal. And whatever unfolds next, unfolds from alignment, not attachment. Closing of Chapter 5. Inner union is not something you achieve. It is something you stop resisting. It arrives when you no longer outsource your sense of completion. When wholeness becomes your default state, love stops being something you need to survive. It becomes something you choose to share. And that changes everything. In the next chapter, we will explore what this inner union means for future relationships. How love enters your life when you are no longer looking to be completed. For now, let this truth settle. You were never meant to be found. You were meant to return to yourself. And you have. When inner union stabilizes, love does not disappear. It becomes clearer, not louder, not more dramatic, not more intoxicating, clearer. And clarity changes everything. The end of love is compensation. Before inner union, love often served a function. It compensated for loneliness. It soothed old wounds. It validated identity. It made life feel meaningful. After inner union, love is no longer required to fix anything. You do not seek someone to fill silence. You do not lean on another to regulate your emotions. You do not merge to avoid being alone. Love stops being medicine. It becomes meeting. Why love feels different now. Many people expect love after healing to feel more intense. But intensity was a symptom. It came from instability, anticipation, and uncertainty. What replaces it is presence. Presence feels slower. Presence feels quieter. Presence does not spike the nervous system. And at first this can feel underwhelming. Until you realize, nothing is pulling you out of yourself anymore. You no longer fall, you choose. There is a profound shift here. You no longer fall in love. You enter love. Consciously. With discernment. You notice how someone treats you when it's inconvenient. How they handle boundaries. How they show up consistently. You don't get lost in potential. You respond to reality. And that changes who you allow into your life. Chemistry no longer overrides alignment. Chemistry used to be enough. The spark. The pull. The recognition. But inner union refines your perception. You still feel attraction. But attraction is no longer permission. You ask different questions now. Is this reciprocal? Is this emotionally safe? Is this aligned with my values? If the answer is no, chemistry fades quickly. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer controls you. You do not chase emotional highs. After inner union, you are not hungry for emotional highs. You are sensitive to them. You recognize when intensity is masking instability. You notice when excitement is driven by uncertainty. And instead of leaning in, you pause. Not out of fear. Out of clarity. Love becomes mutual or it does not continue. This is one of the most important changes. You no longer carry relationships alone. You no longer explain your needs repeatedly. You no longer hold space for someone who does not hold you. Mutuality is no longer negotiable. And when it is absent, you do not personalize it. You simply disengage. You can love without losing center. One of the greatest gifts of inner union is the ability to stay centered in connection. You do not abandon routines. You do not shrink your life. You do not silence yourself. You remain whole while loving. And this creates a different quality of intimacy. Not fused, but grounded. You are comfortable with slow building. After inner union, urgency disappears. You are not rushing to define the relationship. You are not afraid of time. You allow things to unfold naturally. Because you are not trying to secure love. You are observing alignment. And time becomes an ally, not a threat. You no longer attach to outcomes. Perhaps the most noticeable shift. You enjoy connection without clinging to outcomes. You can experience affection without projecting a future. You can open your heart without demanding permanence. This does not mean you avoid commitment. It means you allow commitment to arise organically. The way you handle disappointment changes. Disappointment no longer destabilizes you. If something does not progress, you feel sadness without collapse. You do not spiral. You do not question your worth. You do not reinterpret the entire experience as failure. You integrate and move forward. Gracefully. You attract different dynamics. Inner union changes what you attract, not mystically but practically. Your boundaries filter connections. Your presence sets the tone. People who seek chaos, ambiguity, or control do not stay long. Those who value clarity, presence, and mutuality recognize you quickly, and relationships become simpler. Love is no longer the center of your life. This may sound surprising, but it is essential. Love is no longer the axis around which everything turns. Your life has multiple centers: purpose, creativity, health, relationships, self-connection. Love becomes one expression of a full life, not the source of it. You can love without needing to be chosen. Perhaps the most radical shift. You no longer need to be chosen to feel worthy. Being wanted is welcome. Being chosen is appreciated. But your sense of self does not hinge on it. And from this place, you relate as an equal, not a seeker. A new definition of intimacy. Intimacy after inner union is less about intensity and more about presence. It is honesty without fear, vulnerability without collapse, closeness without fusion. You allow yourself to be seen without handing over your power. The twin flame narrative integrates, not dominates. If twin flame language still resonates, it does so quietly. It no longer drives your choices. It no longer explains away misalignment. It becomes a chapter, not the entire book. And that is integration. Love feels like expansion, not rescue. Love no longer feels like rescue. Feels like expansion. You grow not because you must, but because you want to share life. You are not saved. You are accompanied. Love after inner union is not less passionate. It is less chaotic. It is not louder. It is truer. You do not lose romance. You lose illusion. And what remains is something far more sustainable. Connection without self-erasure. Intimacy without fear. Love without desperation. In the next chapter, we will explore the final integration. What it means to live from inner union fully, even when life does not follow a romantic script. For now, let this truth anchor you. You do not need love to complete you. You need wholeness to experience love fully. And you have found it. Inner union is not a peak experience. It is not a spiritual high. It is not a permanent state of bliss. It is not the end of struggle. It is something far more subtle. It is what remains when you are no longer negotiating your existence. And that is why it feels like freedom. Freedom is not the absence of challenge. One of the greatest misunderstandings about inner union is the belief that once you reach it, life becomes easier. It does not. Life continues to present uncertainty, disappointment, change, loss. The difference is not what happens. The difference is where you meet it from. You are no longer facing life from a fragmented self that needs constant reassurance. You are facing it from a centered one. Stability is not rigidity. Inner stability is often mistaken for emotional control. But control is tight. Stability is spacious. You still feel sadness when something ends. You still feel fear when something matters. You still feel vulnerability when you open your heart. But none of these emotions hijack your identity. They move through you, not against you. You do not collapse into them. You do not run from them. You allow them. And that allowance is freedom. You no longer need to explain yourself. One of the most noticeable changes when you begin living from inner union is how little you feel the need to justify your choices. You stop explaining why you left. You stop defending your boundaries. You stop narrating your healing. Not because you are closed, but because you are clear. You know why you choose what you choose. And that internal coherence removes the need for external validation. Your energy returns to the present. Before inner union, much of your energy lived elsewhere. In the past, replaying what happened, wondering what went wrong. In the future, imagining reunion, fearing loss, waiting for resolution. Living from inner union brings your energy home. You are here, not obsessively present, not spiritually bypassing, just available to the moment in front of you. And when your energy returns to the present, life becomes responsive again. You stop living in reaction. Reaction is exhausting. When you live from wounds, everything feels personal. A delay feels like rejection. A boundary feels like abandonment. A change feels like loss. Inner union creates space between stimulus and response. You pause. You assess. You respond, not reflexively but consciously. This is not emotional suppression. It is emotional sovereignty. You are no longer afraid of being alone. Solitude stops feeling like punishment. It becomes neutral. Sometimes nourishing. Sometimes quiet. Sometimes uncomfortable. But never threatening. You no longer rush to fill space. You do not attach urgency to connection. You trust that relationship is an addition, not a rescue. And this fundamentally changes how you relate to others. Freedom from the need to be special. Another subtle shift happens here. You no longer need the story to make you special. You no longer need a destined bond, a rare connection, a dramatic narrative to feel meaningful. Your life does not need justification. You are not here to prove anything. And that releases enormous pressure. Your choices become cleaner. Living from inner union simplifies decision-making. Not because choices disappear, but because conflict dissolves. You no longer choose between love and self-respect, truth and belonging, peace and connection. Those false dichotomies fade. You choose what aligns. And if alignment is not present, you wait, or you walk away without inner drama. You can stay open without being vulnerable to harm. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of inner union. Being open does not mean being exposed. You still have boundaries. You still have discernment. You still say no. But your heart is not armored. You are not defensive. You do not close to protect yourself. You trust your ability to respond. And that trust is what makes openness safe. You are not driven by hope or fear. Hope and fear once governed your movement. Hope kept you waiting. Fear kept you frozen. Inner union dissolves both. You do not need hope to survive uncertainty. You do not need fear to protect yourself from loss. You move when movement is right. You rest when rest is needed. Not because of expectation, because of alignment. You experience life directly again. Living from inner union restores immediacy. Moments are no longer filtered through meaning-making, spiritual interpretation, relational implications. You enjoy a conversation without wondering where it's going. You feel joy without questioning its permanence. You feel sadness without attaching a story. Life becomes direct, and direct experience is grounding. Freedom is the end of inner negotiation. Before, you were always negotiating internally. If I do this, will I lose them? If I choose myself, will I regret it? If I let go, will I miss my chance? Inner union ends that negotiation. You trust yourself to meet whatever follows. You no longer bargain with life. You participate in it. You no longer abandon yourself for meaning. Perhaps the most important shift of all. You stop abandoning yourself to make something meaningful. You do not endure pain to validate connection. You do not stay small to preserve possibility. You do not suffer to feel chosen. Your life has meaning because you are present in it. That is enough. Stability reveals freedom, not limitation. Some fear that stability will make life dull. But stability does not flatten experience. Deepens it. Because when you are not consumed by inner chaos, you can feel more, not less. More nuance. More subtlety. More presence. And that is where richness lies. This is what inner union was always pointing toward. Inner union was never about reunion. It was about liberation. Liberation from dependency, fear, self-abandonment, waiting. It was about becoming someone who could love without losing themselves. Someone who could stand alone without closing their heart. Living from inner union does not make you untouchable. It makes you rooted. You still love. You still risk. You still feel. But you no longer disappear into experience. Stability becomes the ground you walk on. And from that ground, freedom emerges not as escape, but as embodiment. In the next chapter, we will explore the final integration. How inner union expresses itself in the world. Through purpose, service, and a life that no longer revolves around love, but includes it naturally. For now, let this truth settle. You are not free because life is certain. You are free because you no longer need it to be. And that changes everything. At some point, something subtle happens. You realize that the love story, as profound, painful, transformative as it was, is no longer the center of your life. It is no longer the question everything revolves around. And instead of feeling like loss, this realization feels like space. When the story stops being the axis. For a long time, the connection gave your life structure. Every insight pointed back to it. Every lesson was interpreted through it. Every shift felt meaningful because of it. The story explained who you were becoming. But inner union changes the architecture of your life. The story no longer organizes your identity. It integrates. It becomes one chapter, not the entire book. Why meaning needs to move beyond relationship. Relationships are powerful initiations. They awaken. They mirror. They destabilize. But they are not meant to carry the full weight of your existence. When meaning is placed entirely inside a love story, life becomes narrow. Everything must serve the narrative. Inner union releases that pressure. You no longer need your life to prove anything through love. Meaning begins to emerge elsewhere. Purpose does not arrive as a grand mission. Many people expect purpose to announce itself dramatically, as a calling, as a destiny, as a clearly defined path. But purpose after inner union is quieter. It shows up as what you care about when no one is watching, where your attention naturally goes, what feels worth your energy without needing validation. Purpose is not something you search for. It reveals itself when you stop outsourcing your sense of worth. The shift from self-focus to contribution. The twin flame journey is necessarily inward, turns your attention to wounds, patterns, identity, self-awareness. But there comes a point where continued self-focus becomes limiting. Inner union naturally turns you outward, not to save others, not to teach, not to perform wisdom, but to participate. You begin asking, how can I engage with life? What can I build? What can I contribute? What wants to move through me? And these questions feel different. They are not driven by lack. They are driven by presence. A life no longer defined by healing. Healing was once central, necessary, all-consuming, urgent. But when inner union stabilizes, healing stops being your primary identity. You are no longer someone becoming whole. You are someone living whole. Pain still arises, but it is not your lens. Growth continues, but it is not your obsession. You stop asking, what does this mean about me? And start asking, what do I want to do with this life? Meaning becomes grounded, not mythic. Earlier, meaning felt mythic. It came from signs, synchronicities, spiritual interpretation, symbolic roles. Now, meaning becomes practical. It lives in consistency, craftsmanship, showing up, following through. You find meaning not in being chosen, but in choosing to engage fully. And this is a profound shift. Your identity expands beyond relationship roles. You are no longer the one waiting, the one healing, the one holding space, the one learning lessons. Those roles fall away, not because they were wrong, but because they were transitional. You begin to experience yourself as a creator, a contributor, a participant in the world. Your sense of self broadens. And with that expansion comes stability. You stop measuring your life through emotional intensity. Earlier, intensity was a marker of meaning. If something felt big, it mattered. If it hurt deeply, it was significant. Now your metric changes. You value sustainability, coherence, depth without chaos. You stop chasing moments that break you open. You start building a life that holds you. Purpose is often simple. Purpose after inner union rarely looks impressive. It may involve creating something consistently, caring for something or someone, developing a skill, contributing quietly. And because it is not dramatic, the ego often resists it. But simplicity is where integration lives. Purpose is not about recognition. It is about alignment. You are no longer living for resolution. The love story does not need to resolve perfectly. It does not need a reunion. It does not need a final answer. It does not need to make sense to anyone else. Your life no longer waits for emotional closure to begin. It has already begun. And that is freedom. How love fits into an integrated life. Love does not disappear. It takes its rightful place. It becomes one expression of a meaningful life, not the foundation of it. You love from fullness. You connect without losing direction. You relate without postponing purpose. Love becomes integrated, not idolized, not avoided, integrated. You no longer seek validation through storytelling. Earlier, telling the story helped you survive. It gave context. It gave meaning. It made pain bearable. But now you no longer need to narrate your life to justify it. You live it. And that quiet confidence does not require explanation. Integration is the end of spiritual performance. One of the final layers to fall away is the need to appear healed, awakened, or evolved. You stop performing insight. You stop proving growth. You stop comparing journeys. You trust your internal alignment more than any framework. And that trust is grounding. A life that is no longer about love but includes it. This is the essence of integration. Love is no longer the sun everything orbits. It is a planet in a balanced system. Important, valuable, but not all-consuming. Your life has multiple centers now. And because of that, nothing collapses if one area shifts. The deepest realization of all. Here is the realization that completes the arc. The love story did not happen to define you. It happened to free you. It dismantled what was false. It exposed where you abandoned yourself. It returned you to center. And from that center, life opens outward. Beyond the love story, there is a life waiting. Not a lesser life. Not a consolation prize. A fuller one. A life where meaning is created, not assigned. Where purpose is lived, not searched for. Where love is welcomed, but not required to justify existence. In the final chapters, we will explore how this integrated life continues to unfold, how inner union expresses itself over time, through choices, creativity, and a grounded sense of belonging in the world. For now, let this settle. You were never meant to revolve around a story. You were meant to live a life. And now you are. There is a moment in healing that is difficult to describe, not because it is dramatic, but because it is almost invisible. It is the moment when the past stops tugging at you, not because you erased it, not because you reinterpreted it, not because you finally understood the lesson, but because it no longer has emotional gravity. The past does not leave, it loses its weight. The past never disappears. Memories remain. Faces remain. Moments remain. What changes is not their existence, but their pull. Before, the past had a kind of force. A single memory could collapse your present. A familiar place could reopen wounds. A thought could send you spiraling. Time felt nonlinear. You were here but also there. And that split was exhausting. Why the past once had power over you? The past had power because parts of you were still living inside it. Unfinished conversations. Unfelt grief. Unclaimed self-respect. You were not remembering the past. You were inhabiting it. And so the present could never fully hold you, because something unresolved kept calling you backward. Healing is not about letting go of memory. This is where many misunderstand healing. They believe healing means forgetting, forgiving prematurely, reframing everything as meant to be. But healing is not about erasing memory. It is about uncoupling memory from identity. You remember without becoming the version of yourself who was wounded. You recall without reliving. And that distinction changes everything. The day you realize you're not there anymore. This realization does not arrive with ceremony. It arrives casually. You think of something that once hurt deeply, and your body stays relaxed. You see a reminder, and nothing tightens. You tell the story, and it sounds distant even to you. Not numb, just complete. And in that moment, you realize you are no longer living in that chapter. Time begins to feel linear again. One of the quiet gifts of emotional freedom is the return of linear time. Before, time folded in on itself. The past invaded the present. The future was haunted by fear or hope. But when the past loosens its grip, time straightens. You experience moments as they are. You stop projecting old pain forward. You stop revisiting old wounds backward. You live where you are. Memory without charge is freedom. A charged memory controls you. An uncharged memory informs you. That is the difference. When emotional charge dissolves, memory becomes reference, not residence. Experience becomes wisdom, not identity. History becomes context, not captivity. You can remember without losing yourself. And that is liberation. Why emotional freedom feels subtle. Emotional freedom is often overlooked because it does not feel like triumph. Feels like neutrality. No spike of joy. No wave of grief. No dramatic relief. Just space. And space can feel anticlimactic to a nervous system that once survived on intensity. But space is where life can finally enter. You stop asking why. One of the clearest signs the past has released you is the disappearance of why. Why did this happen? Why did they choose differently? Why did I go through this? These questions lose urgency, not because they were answered, but because they are no longer needed. You stop searching for justification. You accept what was, without requiring explanation. The end of rewriting the past. Before emotional freedom, you kept rewriting the past in your mind. Different endings, different choices, different versions of yourself. This was not reflection. It was longing disguised as thought. When freedom arrives, the rewriting stops. The past settles into what it is. And you stop trying to rescue yourself retroactively. You are no longer defined by what happened. The past once shaped your self-image. You saw yourself as the one who was left, the one who waited, the one who endured, the one who changed. Now those identities loosen. You are no longer defined by what happened. You are defined by who you are now. And that shift is profound. Grief transforms instead of disappearing. Emotional freedom does not mean grief vanishes. It transforms. It becomes softer, quieter, more spacious. You can feel sadness without being consumed. You can miss without wanting to return. Grief becomes a gentle acknowledgement, not a gravitational force. The past no longer competes with the present. Before, the past competed with your present life. Nothing fully satisfied you, because something else once mattered more. But now the present stands on its own. You invest in what is here. You show up without comparison. You enjoy without nostalgia stealing the moment. The present becomes sufficient. You no longer fear remembering. When emotional freedom stabilizes, you are no longer afraid of memory. You do not avoid reminders. You do not brace yourself emotionally. You trust yourself to remember without collapsing. And that trust is power. The body confirms the shift. This freedom is not just mental. It lives in the body. Your shoulders stay relaxed. Your breath stays steady. Your sleep deepens. Your nervous system no longer reacts to ghosts. You are physically present in your life again. Why this stage feels like quiet joy? Quiet joy is easily missed. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. Feels like waking up without emotional heaviness. Moving through the day without inner commentary. Feeling available to life again. This joy is not excitement. It is relief. You stop measuring progress by pain. Earlier, pain felt like proof of growth. If it hurt, you were doing the work. But emotional freedom shifts the metric. Progress becomes measured by ease, by how little effort it takes to be yourself, by how naturally you move forward, by how lightly the past rests behind you. The past becomes a closed chapter, not a locked room. A locked room still demands attention. A closed chapter does not. The past no longer waits for you to return. It rests, and you walk forward unburdened. What remains after the past releases you? When the past no longer pulls you, what remains is availability. Availability for presence, creativity, connection, uncertainty without fear. You are no longer busy managing memory. You are free to live. Emotional freedom is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is not performative. It does not seek recognition. It is simply the absence of inner resistance. When the past no longer pulls you, you do not feel empty. You feel light. And from that lightness, life becomes possible in a way it never was before. In the final chapter, we will bring everything together. What it means to live fully from this place, without needing the story, the pain, or the identity that once defined you. For now, let this truth land. The past no longer needs you. And because of that, you are finally free to be here. Completion does not arrive with certainty. It does not arrive with a declaration. It does not arrive with answers neatly arranged. It arrives quietly, when you stop asking the journey to justify itself. Completion is not a conclusion. For a long time, you believed completion would feel like clarity. You thought it would bring understanding, validation, a final realization that made everything make sense. But the completion you arrive at now feels different. It does not explain the journey. It releases you from needing it to. The end of meaning-making. Earlier, every experience demanded interpretation. Every emotion needed a reason. Every connection needed a label. Every pain needed a lesson. Meaning-making was survival. It helped you endure uncertainty. It helped you believe nothing was wasted. But now something changes. You no longer need to extract meaning from everything that happened. Not because it was meaningless, but because your life no longer depends on interpretation. You can let experience be experience. The moment you stop asking, what was the point? This moment does not come with relief. Comes with neutrality. You realize that asking, what was the point? No longer moves you forward. The question falls away on its own. And in its absence you feel space. Not emptiness. Space. The journey does not need to be redeemed. One of the deepest shifts happens here. You stop needing the journey to lead somewhere extraordinary, to be acceptable. It does not need to result in reunion. It does not need to transform into purpose. It does not need to become a story worth telling. It was lived. That is enough. Letting the story rest. The story does not disappear, but it no longer needs to be carried. You stop returning to it. Stop refining it. Stop wondering how it sounds from the outside. It settles into the background, not unresolved, but complete. Completion without closure. This completion does not come from closure. There is no final conversation, no mutual understanding, no shared resolution, and yet you feel done. Not with bitterness, not with resignation, with acceptance. When identity no longer needs the journey. Earlier, the journey shaped your identity. You were the one awakening, the one healing, the one enduring, the one transforming. Now those identities loosen. You are no longer someone defined by a process. You are someone living. And that shift is subtle but absolute. The end of spiritual ambition. You no longer need this journey to mean you are special. You no longer need it to confirm growth, or destiny, or spiritual depth. You stop measuring your life through transformation narratives. You become ordinary again. And ordinary feels like relief. Nothing needs to be resolved for life to continue. Perhaps the most liberating realization. Life does not require resolution. You do not need clarity to move forward. You do not need certainty to engage. You do not need answers to be at peace. You can live without understanding everything that shaped you. And that is freedom. Presence replaces purpose. Earlier you searched for purpose. Now presence is enough. You show up. You engage. You respond to what is in front of you. Not because it fulfills a destiny, but because it is here. And being here is sufficient. You stop waiting for the final insight. There is no final insight. No sentence that completes the journey. No realization that closes the loop. And the moment you accept that, the loop dissolves. You no longer wait. Completion feels like grounding, not elevation. This completion does not lift you above life. Places you in it. You are not watching yourself evolve. You are not narrating your growth. You are living quietly, imperfectly, fully. The journey becomes a footnote, not because it lacked importance, but because it no longer dominates. It becomes a footnote in a much larger life. Something that happened. Something that shaped you. Something that no longer defines you. You are no longer oriented around healing. Healing is no longer your primary activity. You are not fixing. You are not processing. You are not integrating. You are living. And when pain arises, you meet it. When joy arises, you allow it. Without turning either into a project. Nothing is missing. This is perhaps the clearest sign of completion. You do not feel that something is missing. Not because you have everything you want, but because you are no longer waiting for life to complete you. Life is already happening, and you are inside it. The quiet confidence of being done. Being done does not mean being finished. It means being free. Free from needing the journey to lead somewhere else. Free from needing to become someone more. Free from needing to explain yourself. You trust your life as it is unfolding. Love is no longer the axis. Love still exists. Connection still matters. Relationships still evolve. But they are no longer the axis around which you rotate. They are part of the landscape, not the map. You do not need to return to the beginning. You will not return to who you were. Not because you outgrew them, but because you integrated them. There is no need to go back. Nothing there is calling you. The journey ends where life begins. This is the quiet truth. The journey does not end with understanding. It ends with living. Not as someone becoming, but as someone present. Closing of Chapter 10. Completion does not announce itself. Feels like stillness. Like neutrality. Like readiness without anticipation. You do not feel victorious. You do not feel enlightened. You feel grounded. And that grounding is enough. You no longer need the journey to mean anything more. Because you are here. And life, in all its uncertainty and ordinariness, is finally allowed to move forward without explanation. That is the quiet completion, and it is real.